Right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to my kitchen. There we are. My name is Hannah, and I am a nutrition educator with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County. And I'm here for another video in our series, What Can I Cook With?, where I take ingredient suggestions from community members like you and show you some different things that you can cook with them, and hopefully give you some different ideas to think about that you can take into your own kitchen. So today's suggestion was for pearl couscous, and common to popular belief, pearled couscous is not a grain, it is actually a pasta. So it's made from semolina wheat, and you can get it in multiple sizes. So this one here you can see is the pearled couscous, but you can also get it in smaller sizes. And this recipe will actually work with either. I'm going to go ahead and start cooking this before I tell you anything more about the recipe we have going on today, because it's going to take about 15 minutes. So over here on my stove, you can see I have a pot of water boiling. So in general, it is about a 1 cup ratio of couscous to 1 1/4 cup of water or low sodium broth, whichever you want to use. So I have 2 cups of couscous here, but I actually have closer to 4 cups of water boiling in this pot. And that's because, like a pasta, we are going to drain it at the end. So I think it's a lot easier to cook it in excess of water. A lot of times you will see recipes that treat it more like a rice, where a lot of the water evaporates by the end. But since I'll be talking with you all and working on some other components, I don't want to have to pay a whole lot of attention to it. So I'm just going to get it boiling in an excess of water. And then once it boils, we'll bring it down to a simmer. And keep an eye on that for right now. And then once it does, we'll drain it. And I'm actually going to add all of my ingredients, the other ingredients I'm going to use, back into the pot with it. And the kind of leftover starchy water will help it all kind of adhere together and make a nice sauce. So I'm feeling pretty good about this ratio here. As I mentioned before, if you want some additional flavor, you could use a low sodium broth as well. So with our couscous, we will be making a warm pasta salad. So I like the couscous using this size instead of maybe another pasta shape because it feels like I can get more balanced bites. So I'll be getting some pasta, I will be getting some beans, and I will be getting some veggies in every single bite. And sometimes when I have another type of pasta salad, it feels like the ratio is all off. So using the pearl couscous for this will really help. I also really enjoy this recipe, and I think I say this every single time, but because it's really customizable. So you can use whatever you have on hand, and I really like it as a way to use seasonal produce. So sometimes when I go to the farmer's market, I will see something that looks really interesting, but I'm not really sure necessarily what to make with it. And this is something that I know I can always go back to, and it will always be delicious. All right, so my couscous is boiling, and I'm going to reduce it down to a simmer. So turn it down to about low and put the lid back on. I'm going to get a timer going for 15 minutes, and we'll check it then. So as I was saying, this is great for using some seasonal produce from the farmer's market, or if you go to farm stands or get a community-supported agriculture box, which is kind of like a subscription box where a lot of times you don't actually know what you are going to be getting week to week. So this is a great thing to have on your menu that you know you can put almost anything into it. So what I have going on today, I have some Jacob's cattle beans, which I've actually never cooked with before, but I really like that they hold their shape really well, and they actually taste really good. I tried some before I came on today. And this is what they look like in their dried form. They're very beautiful. If you're interested in how to cook them from dry, I have a whole video on the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County webpage under Nutrition Video Resources. But essentially, you soak it for 8 hours, and then you boil them until soft. So pretty simple there. So I've got my beans. I'm going to caramelize some onions here. I have some roasted broccoli that I had left over. So one thing I wanted to note about the broccoli is I also included the stem. So a lot of folks don't know that you can eat that and include it in your dishes, and it's actually really good. It's really smooth and a little bit sweeter and creamy. So I like to include that. I also have some chopped up sausage, some spinach, and an orange bell pepper that I'm going to use. So it's going to be lots of colors and lots of flavors. So I'm going to start by getting my onions going because I want them to have as much time as possible to caramelize. So onions really benefit from going low and slow. It will bring out their sweetness and prevent them from burning. So I've got a little saute pan with, you can see, a little bit of olive oil, not too much. I don't want to be frying these. So it's about a tablespoon. And then I have my onion that I sliced up in little rainbows. You could put them in any shape. If you wanted to dice for smaller pieces, that would be fine, but you'll see they shrink up a lot. I'm just going to go ahead and dump these in here. And give them a little mix, so they get oil on them. Caramelized onions are one of my favorite ways to add a little more flavor and a little more fanciness to any meal. And even though they take a little bit more time, you can make a big batch at once and use them throughout the week. And they're pretty hands-off. So they're a great thing that you can just have on the stove while you're working on other things. So we'll let those get cooking over here. Then I wanted to show you how I prepared my broccoli using this tiny floret as a stand-in for a whole big bundle. So like I said, the stem is really delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and I like slicing that up into little pieces. And then the broccoli, I usually cut it in fairly small pieces. That way it will roast quicker. So this took me about 15 minutes at 425 degrees to get this really nice caramelization on there. You can see. And then I would just toss it in some oil. Because I'm cooking at a higher temperature of 425 degrees, I like using either vegetable or canola oil because those don't smoke at as such low temperatures. So then I also decided just a minute before I came on here that I wanted to have some more colors in this. So that's why I pulled out this orange bell pepper. But you could add color in a variety of ways. I've got my little compost bowl going on here. If you're interested in composting and want to hear more about it, we have a video on our Facebook page, Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County, where we interviewed our master gardener and we talked all about compost and gardening. So this is also a great recipe. If you are a gardener and maybe you don't have that high of yields, you can use small amounts of different vegetables and just add them in together. So for the bell pepper, I just took off the top like this, and you saw I reached in and pulled all the seeds out. Did the same for the top. Then I don't want any of this delicious vegetable to go to waste, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this off too in slices. So I mentioned the stems of broccolis as different pieces that you could use that a lot of folks don't always think of. That's true for a lot of different parts of different vegetables. So like the leaves of beets are one. You could make a carrot top pesto as your sauce for this dish we're creating today. Even the stems of kale, if you chop them up really finely and saute them, they're really delicious and you're not getting as much food wasted. So I'm just taking this down into slices. I think I'm going to dice them up. I hadn't fully decided what I was actually going to do with this bell pepper when I pulled it out. It'll be a fun adventure for all of us. have a little bit of a formula when it comes to making salads in general, but specifically pasta salads. So now I'm just going to go ahead and dice all these slices. I think I'm going to do, yeah, I'm going to do little bite-sized pieces. So the formula is I like to have something that's chewy, which in this case is going to be our couscous. It's also going to give us a nice nutty flavor. So we've got some different tastes and textures with that ingredient. I like to have something sweet, which is going to be our caramelized onions here. Give them a good stir. Oops, we have an escapee. They're going on really well. I like to have something that's fresh to give it a little bit more vibrancy, a little bit more color. And that's going to be my spinach in this case. I'm just going to stir it in at the end. I like to have something creamy, and that's going to be my beans, and also to some extent my broccoli, specifically the stems, will serve that purpose. And I like to have something tart or kind of sour. And for that, this is going to be some lemon juice. And within those kind of parameters, you get a lot of different textures, you get a lot of different flavors, and everything seems to really balance out nicely. You could also add in something spicy if you wanted to. Maybe some red pepper flakes would be delicious. That's always kind of a go-to for me. I find out this formula also works really well for some top-notch sandwiches and also like appetizer plates. Always have a little bit of something for everyone. I'm also going to mention I am keeping an eye on the chat, so if you have any questions or anything you'd like to share, feel free to type it in there and I'll answer you live. So I mentioned before that the sauce for this, we're just going to go really simple because I'm spending, you know, a bit of time on all of these other accompaniments, and it's a nice day out, so I don't want something that's going to keep me in the kitchen a long time. So we're just going to give it a nice sprinkle of lemon juice and black pepper, and if you had fresh herbs, that would be stunning, but I'm going to be using some parsley. I'm sorry if you heard that notification. It's giving me a Wi-Fi signal. Yeah, so just a really simple sauce. But if you wanted to be a little bit more ambitious, maybe you're making this for a party or something like that, you could try a lot of different things. So you could just go the classic salad dressing route. If you're kind of making this into a cold salad, that would be great. I mentioned before pesto. So there are lots of different types of pesto. You don't just have to make it with basil, which can sometimes be hard to find in such large amounts. But you could make it with kale, with carrot tops. The main thing is just to blanch the greens. So submerge them in boiling water for a few seconds, for about 30 seconds, and dump them in ice water. And then you can follow other basil recipes. There's lots available, but that would go really great with this as well, and also add some more greens to what you're making. Giving this a good stir. You can see my onions are now getting translucent, and I'm going to take them even farther. Right, and I have them on about medium high. I'm just going to go ahead and push these off to the side right now. I think I'm probably going to throw them in with the onions, but they will also be good raw. So I've got my lemon here. I think rolling it helps release some of the juices. Also having a warm lemon helps. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen it up. Go ahead and cut it up. I like to pop out all the seeds so I don't have to go fishing for them. And these look pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and juice. I think I'm just gonna use 1/2. Yeah, I think that would be good. That's about 2 tablespoons, if you can tell. I don't know if you can really see it from the side here. So about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice will be enough. Another stir. So now with this half of the lemon, you could either compost it. Sometimes I like to put it down my garbage disposal if you have a strong garbage disposal that it won't mess up. Stick it down there and run it, and it helps it smell better. Make sure the water's running though. You can find lots of different uses for lemon peels and lemon rinds. Got this going. Got this going. Going to shred my spinach. Just so it will more evenly distribute throughout my couscous salad. And you'll kind of get it, again, a little bit of everything in every bite. Add this over here. Just running my knife through. I think arugula would be really good in this, something peppery. Would get a little bit extra dimension. But again, whatever you have available, whatever you and your family like, whatever you want to try cooking with would work really well. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and try my couscous and see if it's ready. Give these a stir. Okay. Go ahead and hold this up for you all to see. So you can see it's plumped up a lot. You can barely see any liquid in there. It's all really getting absorbed. So I'm going to go ahead and taste it. And we'll see if it's ready. And again, so if you were cooking it with a smaller amount of water, that's perfect. Let me wash my hands real quick. So again, if you were cooking it with a smaller amount of water, you would really want to be keeping an eye on it. So that's why I really recommend, if you find a recipe online that talks about making the pearl couscous and it has that smaller, ratio where it says 1 1/4 cups, unless we have a reason for using so few, I really recommend cooking in excess like you would any other pasta. So I'm just draining it in my sink here. And again, it's okay if it's not bone dry because that extra kind of starchy water will help everything stick together. You can see that's what it looks like now. Okay. So here it is, and I'll actually keep it right here so we can start adding everything. All right, the onions are getting there. You can see they're starting to get kind of brown and caramelized in some areas, but my pan is dry, so I'm going to add a little bit more oil. I don't like to add too much oil in the beginning. I prefer to add it a little bit as needed. This just helps keep your onions from getting too oily, and again, it keeps them from frying. I feel like I really cannot overstate how much I love deeply caramelized onions. I feel like they take every dish just right up to the next level. You can put them on soup, you can put them on sandwiches, you can put them on pizza. They're really great in terms of adding flavor. They're also really good on like garlicky greens. So if you're making Swiss chard or kale or spinach or collard greens, cooking those up with some garlic and putting these onions on top, very delicious. All right, so I've got my couscous right here. I'm gonna add in my broccoli. I'm gonna add in this turkey sausage that I have. You could leave this vegetarian, or you could add in another type of meat if you wanted to. This again, trying to choose some leaner meats when possible. So there you can see it a little bit more. I'm gonna go ahead and toss in my spinach as well. And again, can't forget about the beans. So these are another great source of protein and fiber. And you could use whatever other beans that you wanted to include. You could also leave them out. Any of these ingredients can be swapped in and out, but they add that nice creaminess that I was talking about before. All right, so now that that's all mixed, see it like that, already looking pretty good. Onions are still going. Make sure you do stir them every once in a while. And I think actually I'm going to put this bell pepper in raw. It's going to stay sweet. It's going to stay crunchy. And I'm looking at my other ingredients, and everything else is a little bit softer, a little bit smoother. So this will add that nice contrast that we're looking for. It's in. Let me go wash my hands because they're bell peppery. Mix this in, and I'm going to sprinkle in some of my dried parsley. You could also, again, fresh herbs would be really delicious in this, some fresh basil or fresh parsley, kind of trying to match your flavor profiles a little bit, but you can't ever really go wrong with parsley. So just sprinkling it on a little bit. If you were using fresh herbs, you might want to give them a good dice. And I'm just adding spices to eye. Especially with parsley, it's not really ever going to get overpowering. But you can see I probably put about a tablespoon in there. Give this another good mix. All right. Give some of my black pepper. I always like to give a few good cranks, especially with lemon. They really complement each other. If you wanted it spicy, you could add the red pepper flakes at this time. Just give my onions a stir. So this is what they look like now, and we're going to keep going. So really getting those deeply caramelized. And again, it's on medium, medium low. I'm going to go ahead and add my 2 tablespoons of lemon juice over the top here. And remember, I still have that other half of the lemon, so if I taste this and decide it needs more, I can just sprinkle that other one in as well. Then just make sure to thoroughly mix it. Make sure that lemon juice is getting all over my couscous. This can also be a great family recipe if you have each member of your family contribute an ingredient, maybe with some parameters, having to pick a vegetable, something like that, and then you can come up and see with what you get. And that can be also a really fun way to try new vegetables. Again, even if from farmer's market, having your kids go and pick something out that looks delicious, but also you could make this multiple times and then on the second or third time, switch out one of the vegetables and help introduce your kids to new veggies in that way. Or other household members. Doesn't even have to be children. Okay, so the onions are getting a lot closer now. But I still want them to cook a little bit more. I'm really looking for a dark brown. If you wanted to, if you were trying to get this done quicker, you could take the onions out at this point or even a little bit sooner once they start caramelizing a little bit. But I really kind of want that smoky sweetness. All right, so I'm actually going to go ahead and try this right now, and we'll see if it needs any adjustments. And that's pretty good. I just do want a little bit more lemon. Let's give it a good squeeze over this. I like lemon as a little bit of an alternative to salt. The acid and the lemoniness does a really great job of bringing out flavors in a similar way to salt. So it can really help you reduce your sodium intake. Because you'll notice I haven't added any salt to this yet, and I don't think I'll need to. All right, and I also need a little bit more black pepper. But again, treat cooking as a process. You know, taste as you go. Make sure each of the components is delicious before you add it to the whole. Of course, if it's food safe to do so. But don't be afraid to make adjustments and deviate from the recipe. Because what is delicious to me may not necessarily be delicious to the next person. And we all have our own specific tastes that have been kind of taught to us since childhood. So making sure that you are having fun in the process and feel comfortable to be creative. Okay. And my onions, I'm gonna say, are done. They'll continue cooking a little bit because the pan's hot. And I'm actually not going to mix them into my couscous salad. I'm going to let people put them on the top, mostly so I can ensure that I get the most of them. But here you go. So see how dark brown these are? You could even let them go a little bit farther if you wanted to get more of a smoky flavor. But this is the flavor that I like, right at the border of sweetness and smoky. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you want to know more about the parts of the food that you might not necessarily think to cook with, how you can reuse things, food scraps around your house, my colleague April and I will be hosting a talk next Wednesday at 5 p.m. on the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County Facebook page, all about what to do with food waste. And we'll be taking your questions at that time too. So if you have any, we'll be happy to answer them live. Other than that, I hope you go ahead and make this and make it your own. You know, use some grilled veggies in here, use something that you find at the farmer's market, add some feta cheese, some Parmesan, just have fun being creative with it. Just again, this is a great dish for thinking about the blending of different textures and different flavors and trying to get a wide range of those. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.